and I'm going to do a little bit of late night chatterboxing, right? So I was watching some videos on TikTok. TikTok is interesting because Facebook tends to be a very toxic platform. YouTube also tends to be a fairly toxic platform, fairly difficult for me in regards to what it is that algorithms or whatever it is, however it works, right? The things that are presented via social media. So I was watching TikTok. There was a video that showed an LGBTQ woman. I guess she was having an issue with a property manager or something like this. So I made a mistake, right? I interacted with her video. I commented on her video. Of course, that person is monitoring all the comments, right? Because unfortunately, we live in this society where people try to decide what other people should or should not be able to say and how it is, that they express themselves, or how it is that they present their opinions on a situation. So what happened was the I guess it was an LGBTQ couple, right? They were lesbians. Hopefully, I'm not wrong about that because I don't know them personally and I don't know what those people are. I know that they're people. The rest of it, I don't know. And at this point, that's the way that I deal with people. I look at them, I say, okay, you're a person, you're a human being. The rest of that shit, I'm not interested in it. It goes right out the window. I don't care if you identify as them, they, her, he, she, him, we, whatever is your so called pronouns, whoever invented that bullshit, right? But pardon my language. Whatever your pronouns might be, I personally don't care about any of it. If you're a female, or if I think you're a female, and I call you or refer to you as she, her, whatever it is, um, I don't need to be corrected by anyone who then is going to turn around and say, uh, it's he, him, or they identify as they, them, or any of that old weird bullshit. First reason is I don't know how many personalities you have. I don't know how many personas it is that you're holding on to inside your particular vessel. All I know is what I'm presented with, and then what my intuition tells me, right? As well as what various spiritual elements communicate to me. And then I deal with things in that regard or in that manner. So the woman was, I guess she was having an issue with a neighbor who lived above her and was making noise at night, maybe stomping or whatever it is, right? It was a problem, a dispute between neighbors, which tends to be a bad situation always when these things occur. That's why I don't like apartment buildings, why I don't like apartment complexes. People being forced into those kinds of areas and communities as renters is a terribly um, predatory situation. You know, I feel that more houses should be being built and less of these apartment complexes and things of that nature, because you'll never own an apartment. I mean, it's a condo if you have a unit in a place like that, right? It's condominium. However, I don't agree with that sort of living situation. It's bad news for a whole lot of reasons. Some people they're just fine like that. Other people they're not. The apartment complexes tend to not be as discriminatory as they should be, right? So they said that Donald Trump was a discriminator when it come to his apartment buildings and his apartment complexes. However, he's catering to people who are of a certain class and a certain income level, I'm very sure. And certain groups of people will try to move into an area where they know that they probably shouldn't be there. I mean, it's one thing if you move somewhere and you're not bothering anybody or you're not doing anything that causes any problems. However, if you move into a neighborhood and you're throwing wild ass parties, or you're in your front yard barbecuing, smoking blunts outside, or you and your friends are drinking alcohol and you're all loud in the front or whatever, that obviously, if that isn't the kind of neighborhood that that person is has moved into, right, then they're going to be disruptive. That's going to be disturbing. This is why certain schools have certain demographics, right? There's certain kinds of people who should stay in certain areas while other people should not be in those areas. And it's unfortunate that that's the case, that it's that way. Um, then you're going to have the issue with certain groups and certain communities who are not going to change their behavior. They're not going to change their patterns. They're not going to change their interests. However, they're going to say that they're underserved. They're going to say that they're overlooked, that there's not enough income or enough investments, right? There's not enough services being provided to those areas in order for them to thrive, usually and mostly because those areas become undesirable. And oftentimes it's based on um, the behavior of certain people, the way certain people behave, the things certain people do. So the LGBTQ couple, right, they happen to be the L, right? They happen to be lesbians. One of them was really abrasive and she started cursing. She started calling a man a bitch, pardon my language. And he definitely didn't take kindly to it. He started cursing back at her, which he shouldn't have done. He shouldn't have played into her nonsense, right? It's hard not to, when someone is verbally attacking you and recording it, right? Obviously, they intend to use that in some sort of evidentiary type of situation or some sort of presentation, right? So when someone's recording you and they're cursing at you or they're disrespecting you, naturally it's going to cause an elevated situation. It's going to cause for tempers to flare. It's going to cause for extreme defensiveness. It's going to cause for all types of behaviors that probably wouldn't take place if that person wasn't using their camera to agitate another person or to cause a problem or to even play the victim, right? I've noticed that in a lot of situations, people are holding up cameras to play the victim, and that's terrible because there are people who actually need to document and record serious situations or serious problems, and they need that evidence or they need that documentation in order to go to an authority or to a court or to a higher up person than the person that they're dealing with in order to show what has taken place. However, nowadays we have these people who want to be instant celebrities or they want 60,000 views on their video. They want 100,000 views on their video. They want that one viral moment that then gives them a YouTube career and a channel that can then monetize, right? That YouTube has created this environment where they are weaponizing cameras and privacy violations and all sorts of different things. I mean, it's terrible for attention. And YouTube obviously makes money from it, but then they incentivize these people to participate in this malarkey because they have a potential for some sort of reward or gain from behaving in a manner that generates views. It's a trip. It's no longer a safety measure. It's no longer a even an honest measure for justice in any regard. They've taken social justice and they've turned it into malarkey, which is terrible. Took no time to do it, but that's what happened. So now we have thousands, if not millions, of videos on TikTok, on YouTube, that some of them are relevant and important, some of them are not. A lot of these things would not have ever made it into the media, or would not have, especially not into the mainstream media. But we have social media where you can post anything. So anything becomes news now. We have cameras on our phones, and we have cameras on our person at all times, because usually we have our phone on our person at all times. So now we've created this situation where we're able to document anything at any time. So a damn tortoise becomes news. A damn leopard gecko becomes news. I mean, it could be anything. And if enough people pay attention to it, then there are people who are going to try to monetize it and advertise it. And it's the worst kind of idiocracy, you know, that movie even became in any way prophetic is interesting. However, a lot of these movies, right, it's Hollywood, it's magic, right? It's Hollywood magic. And some people don't understand the way that works. They just don't. They don't understand that a lot of these actors and these actresses, if they're not occultists, they're intuitive. They're psychics. Some of them, these writers and these groups, right? These think tanks, they work collectively to then reach into, you know, the ether and to pull out information and then compile it in a way that becomes reality, right, for a lot of people, whether that's through imitation or through a process that causes people to recreate what it is that they've seen for themselves in real life, or whether these things were going to absolutely happen and take place. Anyway, so the woman, one of them was very aggressive and belligerent. The other of them was a little more calm. However, she was also interestingly strange. I mean, they were both pretending to be victims while they were being offensive, right? And so what does offensive mean? Normally it means something that is, distasteful, or something that is repugnant, something that is adverse to the senses, right? Something that is considered harmful or problematic, right? That's offensive. A foul odor can be offensive. The way that a person displays themselves or carries themselves can be offensive. Words can be offensive. right? But at the end of the day, offensive really means that you're attacking someone or something. So if you offend my senses, then something about you is attacking my sensory organs, right? You stink, or you're talking out the side of your neck, or you're doing something that I find to be offensive, right? It's aggressive, right? Anything that is offensive is aggressive, so to speak, right? It's not defensive, it's offensive, right? And so these women were behaving in a manner that was offensive. However, after she offended the person she was speaking to, she turned around and tried to play the victim. She tried to then take a defensive posture, as if it was the man who was actually attacking these two women. And that's something that I see happen often, and it's unfortunate. But I see that kind of thing happen oftentimes from LGBT people, or from people who call themselves activists, right? What is activism, right? I know what it means to be active in the gang. I know what it means to be an active gang member. I know what it means to be active, right? It means you're participating in something, right? But these activists, 9 times out of 10, from what I see, especially the political activists, or whatever they seem to think that they are, they're usually very offensive, right? They're using bullhorns and things of that nature to yell and to scream obscenities and profanity at people. They're using amplified, you know, microphones and things like this to yell and scream at people, right? They're calling people all kinds of crazy names because they don't agree with their politics, because they don't agree with their decisions, because they don't agree with their jobs, just because they don't agree with something. They're disagreeable. They're in disagreement. And as such, they feel that they have the right to spew profanity, to say all kinds of crazy and ridiculous things to people. And then if those people were to respond, especially if they are to respond to that violently, then they go to playing the victim. Which makes no sense at all to me. I mean, so if, let's say, for example, these activists, if they go to the front of a police station with bullhorns and create a disturbance and talk a bunch of crazy stuff to people, well, they made a decision to not be inside their home or wherever it was that they were, where they were safe, where they were not being bothered. They made the decision to take an offensive posture and to go and to attack whoever it is, right? Whether it is verbal attacks, whether it's physical attacks, whether it's an attack on the senses, which they then try to say is not violent, right? They're non-violent protesters. However, they're attacking people. So that doesn't make any kind of sense. They're absolutely attacking people, and they're offending people. So if another person was to verbally attack them and they pulled out their camera, right, they would then try to use those people's job title against them. They would try to use their position and their employment against them. Like, this isn't right. You aren't allowed to do that, right? Okay. But then they do that, and they do the same thing. They go and jump in people's faces and talk crazy or whatever it is while they're on their job. And because they're on their job, their hands are supposedly tied because they're looking for a way to use the system against everyone. They're trying to destroy the system and benefit from the system at the same time, which is why a lot of illegal immigrants are being deported because they are doing the same thing. So anyway, we have these two women, and so the man was arguing with the woman, or the woman was arguing with the man, and he must have called the woman her or a she. And these two women, they nutted up. They went crazy about that shit. Pardon my language. They went bonkers about it, right? And they're like, "Oh, her his pronouns are they, he, they, right? He and they." Like, the first thing first, like, this man is supposed to know that. Second, even after she brought that to his attention, she acted like that man is required to speak the way she wants him to speak, or for him to address her in the manner that she wants to be addressed, when obviously she's a biological female. She is a woman. So he didn't say anything wrong. I don't care what you identify as. You can identify as whatever you want to. That doesn't mean that I recognize you as that. That doesn't mean that I see you as that. That doesn't mean that's how you see yourself. And that's fine. You can say that and you can express that. You see yourself as a man and you're a biological female, right? It doesn't mean that I have to see you that way. It doesn't mean that I have to address you that way either. As long as I'm not calling you, a bundle of sticks, or, the D word, right? DYKE. As long as I'm not, calling you one of these derogatory names that describe you in a manner that is absolutely offensive and demeaning, I don't have to call you by what you want me to say. I mean, this is a dominance and submission sort of situation. You're like playing BDSM with the whole wide world, telling them that they have to address you as such and such. Um, I'm not going to call a woman a he. I don't care how it makes her feel. That's irrelevant. That's nonsense. That's malarkey. The same as I'm not going to call a transgender male to female a she. I don't care how they feel about it. And to be honest with you, we don't have to interact at all. We don't have to exchange any words. We don't have to exchange any dialogue. I don't have to know you personally, and I don't have to deal with you. And if I do have to deal with you, it's because you have a job and I have to deal with you, right? In order to, for whatever service or whatever commodity it is that I'm trying to attain for myself, or receive. You're in your job, and as such, you doubly don't have the right to tell me how to address you, as long as I'm not being rude or openly, purposefully disrespectful. However, that woman, she tried to twist it. She tried to turn it. She tried to play the victim. The both of them were like, "Oh, it's he and they," and that's not my, or that wasn't his culture to care about that, right? Like, in certain groups, right, you might have a gang name, right? You might go by a whole nother handle, right? And certain people might know that handle. However, that doesn't mean that everyone is going to call you by that name. That doesn't mean that everyone's going to recognize that name. And honestly and truthfully, that name is fictitious. That's not your name. It's the name you give yourself. It's the name you identify as in them streets. However, that's not your name. That's not your real name. And really you're concealing your identity. You're concealing your real name. And in truth, that's what transgenders and certain other people, that's what they do. They're concealing their biology, they're concealing their identity, and they're doing it in a way that is awkward. It's, you can try to normalize it as much as you want. However, to people who are not part of those groups or those communities, it is socially awkward. And there is in no way, shape, or form should there be some sort of law or protection or something like this that's federal that says that I have to respect or that I have to accept your identity issue, which in effect is really and honestly an identity crisis, right? You have an identity crisis, a gender crisis, right? You don't know who or what you are, and you've made a decision that your biology is not suitable to you, or that your identity is not suitable to you. And so you want other people to address you based on what it is that you've decided for yourself. Well, that's not the way things work in this world, because no matter how many times I tell people that I'm white, they're going to say you're black, you're African American, you hate yourself, you're ashamed of yourself, or whatever it is. Well, that's the way I feel about transgenders. That's the way I feel about some of these LGBTQ politic people, right? I feel like they're ashamed of themselves. I feel like they're they're sellouts. I feel whatever it is that they could try to say applies to me, right? Because I identify as white and they don't want to accept it. They'll tell me, look at your skin color. Like LGBTQ people will argue this stuff and yell it at people. Look at your skin. You're going against your race. You're going against your people. What kind of hypocrisy is that? These LGBTQ people are going against their biology. And if other people don't accept what they have come up with for themselves, then they claim discrimination. They claim to be being targeted or misused. They claim to be victims. So if I don't acknowledge you as a man and you're not a man, or if I don't call you he, but you're not a he, or if I don't acknowledge you to be a woman because you're wearing a wig and you have a penis and you like to wear makeup, all right, then I'm somehow wrong. I'm closed-minded. I should be ashamed of myself. I'm not with the times. I'm not accepting social identity, politics, or whatever the hell you're going to try to twist that into being. But then when it suits these LGBTQ people, oftentimes LGBTQ immigrants, right, Latinos, anchor babies, people who are illegal or their parents are illegal in this country, right? When it suits them, then they want to throw that sort of stuff in your face or at you. They want to try to say, oh, you're a bigot. You're not accepting my identity. You're not accepting me for who I know. I'm not accepting you. First thing first, I'm not an anchor baby. I'm not an illegal immigrant. None of that stuff. So none of that applies to me. And I don't have to agree with it. I don't have to empathize with it. I don't have to feel sorry for you. None of it. That's not my group. That's not my category. That's not my problem. Those aren't my circumstances. So when I was on probation, when I was running from the law, when I was going through the things I was going through in my life as a youth, your illegal immigrant parents did not care about anything I was going through. In fact, oftentimes it would be illegals who didn't speak any English who would be calling the cops on me and my friends, right? It would be them that would be telling the police everything that happened. It would be them that would be the witnesses because they wanted to seem valuable to the police so that they wouldn't get in trouble for not being legal, right? They wanted to present themselves as upstanding and valuable members of society and of the community. Okay, well, the interesting thing about that is this. Um, your parents never cared about me going to juvenile hall or me being arrested or me getting in trouble. So why would I care about them getting arrested or them getting in trouble for breaking the law or for uh, illegally crossing into a country so that they could then try to receive benefits, services. So they're looking for a better life, and everybody in this country wants a better life. Everybody in this country who's legal wants a better life. You crossing into this place when you shouldn't, and you know better, is not going to make me feel any more sorry for you than a person who was born here, raised here, is supposed to be here, and their life is hard for them. Their life is difficult. My life has been hard for me, and very rarely do I get much sympathy for the things that I've been through. So why then do I have to sympathize or empathize with these other people who have nothing to do with me? That's not my family. And you know what? I have family members who are anchor babies. I have family members, an uncle who snuck his wife into the country illegally and all that other stuff. And if she happened to be deported, well, she's not a part of my life like that. She's not a person who I could count on for anything. And so what is that my problem? If she broke the law and went to prison, I'm not going to court for her. I'm not. What is it my problem? She lives her own life under her own circumstances with her own issues. And me too. All right. I have my own life, my own issues, my own circumstances. And nothing that I experience or go through has affected her in any way, shape, or form. So why then should what she goes through in any way, shape, or form affect me? Why should I care? Why should I want to rise up and stand up and fight the power for them, right? They're not fighting for me. So why do I care? I don't. That's not my issue. That's not my problem. That's not my community. That's not my set of circumstances. And I don't need to stand in solidarity with groups that are not my personal problem. I don't. If I can't stand in solidarity with skinheads, then why in the hell do I have to stand in solidarity with the immigrant community? If I can't stand in solidarity with white nationalists, then why, or any nationalist for that matter, right? Why then do I have to stand in solidarity with LGBTQ, right? That group of people has done nothing for me, right? Nothing that I could tangibly put my hands on. I mean, they haven't given me any fake IDs or any sort of benefits that I'm aware of, that other people are also not getting or also not entitled to. So why then should I say that they should then, LGBTQ or immigrants, illegal immigrants, should receive benefits that other people, and including myself, have not been privy to. There's no one that has just said, I haven't been able to go to the DMV and said, you know what, I just want to change my whole identity. I just want a whole new social security number and just give it to me. Right? I want to start all the way over again and all of my debts to disappear. And as such, give me a brand new social security number that says I have a brand new identity and a fresh start. Right? That's what those immigrants, those illegal aliens, that's what they're doing. They're leaving a country where they might have debts. They're leaving a country where they might have criminal issues. They're leaving countries where they might have all sorts of problems. They're coming here and they're being given a clean slate and benefits, right? They're being given it's all the debt forgiveness. It's just a brand new identity and a brand new fresh start. Okay, where can I go where I can do that? Where just every problem that I've ever had can totally disappear, and that place will then welcome me into the fabric of society and allow me to start with no discrimination and no problems and all the support I could ever want or need in life. I am a United States citizen. I was born here. My mother was born here. My father was born here. All of my grandparents were born here. My great grandparents were born here. As far as I know, might be one of them that wasn't no good. Right, but that ain't my problem. Right, he's probably been way dead by this point, and that ain't none of my problem. That ain't none of my issue. You see what I'm saying? And that's one person out of 8 or 16 of them. How many of them? How many ever of them? So that is what that is. Um, but that being said, I mean, these people are acting like they are entitled to all of these exceptions that other people do not get in this world or in this country or in this life. And that is absurd and insane. And in a lot of instances, I've noticed that a lot of these LGBTQ foot soldiers, a lot of these LGBTQ foot soldiers, their parents are illegal immigrants, which is very interesting. Um, so the battery is getting low on this device. I'm going to close this recording by saying that I don't have to agree with you. This is the United States. I don't have to agree with you. I don't have to like you. I don't have to give a damn what you people are doing on TikTok. I don't have to care what you're doing on YouTube. I don't have to care about your black social media podcast groups with 60,000 people or 3,000 people that are supporting each other and giving each other views and all this other stuff and creating channels so you guys can. It's just another scam, right? It's like that PPP loan shit. You know what I mean? It's tap in, right? It's all that kind of crap. I don't have to participate in any of it, right? It's these things I'm seeing on TikTok with these kids acting crazy, talking shit to their fathers, right? Acting like they're their mother's husbands, all this other weird feminist bullshit, all of this LGBTQ bullshit. And believe it or not, all that LGBTQ stuff, that's them feminists. That's their people. That's their little weirdo army and shit. That's them. That's feminism. That's feminists, right? The only way that a man can fit with those people is to be not masculine or to be queer, right? To be strange, to be weird. And I don't have to do any of that. If I'm queer, if I'm weird, that's my personal business. You see what I mean? I see why the military and all these other places said don't ask and don't tell, because it's nobody's fucking business. I don't need people to know what I do in my bedroom with anybody. I don't need people to know what I'm doing in the backwoods with a woman or whoever I'm with, right? Unless the only way I need people to know what it is that I'm doing sexually, right, is if I'm some sort of exhibitionist, right? And TikTok and YouTube and all these platforms, they're creating a voyeur society, a society of voyeurism. You see what I mean? People that want to know your personal business. Also, these people who are doxing folks and all these other terms that you have for this resistance, military bullshit, right? Militant bullshit, that you don't want to be identified as militant because you don't want to suffer the consequences of your militance, right? All that sort of stuff, all that black militant bullshit, pardon my language, you need to understand it. Just keep it funky, keep it real. If you're a militant, you're a militant. If you're a black militant, you're a black militant. If you're a Latino or Hispanic militant, that's what you are. And as such, you're a militant. And that means that you're using military tactics to achieve certain goals. And as such, it's war. And should you find yourself in a terrible, horrible predicament based on your stance, based on your position, especially if it's aggressive or offensive, right? Should you find yourself in some perilous situation, well, you're a militant. You're screaming about a resistance. You want to be Che Guevara. You want to be whoever it is. You want to be a militant. So just know that that was the decision you made. And as such, you're going to be addressed as such. You're going to be treated as such. You're going to be dealt with as such. And I don't have to agree with you. I don't have to. I'm not a sympathizer. I don't have to sympathize with you. I don't. You can say, "Oh, you lack empathy, and you should be ashamed of yourself, and you're ashamed of your skin color, and all." You're ashamed of your genitals. You're ashamed of your body. You're ashamed of your identity. You're ashamed of your biology, right? If I say that to an LGBTQ person, they're going to play the victim. They're going to act as if they are under attack, as if what I'm saying is totally, utterly offensive and not just logical fact. Now, this stuff where you're celebrating the death of that man, Kirk, that's ridiculous. And you know what you get for that. I mean, hey, same as with George Floyd. I mean, I'm not celebrating his death. I just don't care about that dude. He was a fucking drug dealer. Pardon my language. He was a fentanyl dealer. He was killing people. He was selling people poison. He was a piece of shit. I don't care anything about that man. I don't care if black people want to put his face on every wall in every ghetto where there is drugs for sale in the United States. I don't care about it. I don't care about none of that. I don't care about what happened to him. He wasn't some man just minding his business, walking down the street and got attacked by the police or nothing like that. See what I mean? So I'm not playing this game with certain people, with anyone at all. I'm not playing with them. This stuff is very serious, and don't include me in your bull crap. I'm not part of that shit. Don't include me in it. You see what I'm saying? Don't try to turn things around and make it seem like you can identify as a man or a woman, but you're not a biological man or the only person I could even accept this sort of identity crisis from and say we need to respect it and we need to honor it and we need to be aware of it is a hermaphrodite. Like if a hermaphrodite was like, I'm a he or I'm a she or whatever it is, and they have both male and female genitalia, then I could say to myself, well, darn, there's something to this, and we need to respectfully address this situation, right? But if you were born with a penis and you just didn't want it anymore, or if you were born with a vagina and decided to mutilate yourself and go under all these surgical procedures that were purely cosmetic, or you decided to take some hormones or whatever it is, and now you're biologically messed up or whatever it is, don't then think that I have to, in turn, go way far out of my way trying to understand why you did that to yourself, or why it is that you want to be called something different than what you actually are. Because at the end of the day, you're going to look at my skin color, you're going to look at my ancestry, and you're going to tell me I'm not white. See how that works? It's war. And should you find yourself in a terrible, horrible predicament based on your stance, based on your position, especially if it's aggressive or offensive, right? Should you find yourself in some perilous situation, well, you're a militant. You're screaming about a resistance. You want to be Che Guevara. You want to be whoever it is. You want to be a militant. So just know that that was the decision you made. And as such, you're going to be addressed as such. You're going to be treated as such. You're going to be dealt with as such. And I don't have to agree with you. I don't have to. I'm not a sympathizer. I don't have to sympathize with you. I don't. You can say, oh, you lack empathy and you